Tania Stanly grew up restricting her belief system, living from the outside in, and following the rules. Today, that's changed, as she shares with us in this gold conversation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tania Stanly. I'm the host of the Consciousness podcast, Celeste Evolve, and I'm super incredibly excited to be here speaking with you today.
I want to ask you how you decided to create Celeste Evolve and how you decided on the consciousness topic.
The name Celeste Evolve is something that I got when I combined celestial evolution, which is, celestial evolution, getting the help of divine beings and channeling, and then trying to evolve your soul. And that's how I got the name Celeste Evolve. On top of that, it's because I could get the domain easily. There will not be any competitions, but even have to get the username on social media platforms. So that is the number one reason for the name. But the podcast happened because I was going through this spiritual awakening where everything that I believed in suddenly got overturned and it felt like it was wrong. But at the same time, I didn't know what the truth was. I listened to channelers. I listened to a lot of channelers, and I didn't know at the time that they were channeling. Mainly, it was Esther Hicks who was channeling the entity Abraham, and she's amazing. I was going through this phase after my divorce and getting into this single motherhood situation where I was not knowing how to deal with myself, God. There's too many responsibilities, the fear of what's going to happen in the future, whether I'll continue to have this job, whether I'll be able to manage the finances, whether I'll be able to manage the responsibilities as a mom. And that time, the video that popped up on my YouTube feed was Esther Hicks Abraham channeling. I continued listening to it. I was addicted to it because the feeling that you get when you watch those was the sense of calm, the sense of relaxation, like everything is going to be okay. Until then, my entire life, you will not believe it, Susan. I believed that the only way to attain success was through suffering, that suffering is inevitable. You have to suffer. And I wanted suffering. I believed that if I continue to suffer, at the end of this suffering game, something massive is going to happen. If not in this lifetime, probably after death, something must be happening. Maybe I'll get to heaven. I don't know what it was, but suffering is something that we are taught to embrace. But Esther Hicks, for the first time, said, follow your passion, follow joy, choose abundance. And that was her main message, to choose joy all the time. And I never understood this. How could that be true? But when she explains it to every single person who comes in and she talks about being in the vortex, picking joy, and then life unfolds in miraculous ways. I continue to listen to that and I noticed that my fears began to subside. Even when I'm afraid of a meeting going wrong or something going wrong, I would remember what Esther Hicks and what Abraham would say about being in the vortex. And I continue to do that. And then 2 years later, I met with my cousin sister. You won't believe this either. She's been my cousin, obviously, from the time we were born, but we never spoke to each other. We never interacted with each other. But something happened. We DM'd each other and we said, hey, let's catch up. Let's go and have this food at this Korean place. And we went to this restaurant and had beautiful, wonderful Korean food. It was so delicious and it was so healthy. And she can also converse in Korean language. And we spoke about these different things. And she was talking about, she's into psychology. So she was talking about the mind and she was talking about dimensions, Matthias de Stefano, spirituality, reincarnation, and all of those topics. And I got hooked onto it like this kid in a candy store. It's like suddenly all that I had been searching for my entire life was there right here in these concepts. I couldn't understand it. It didn't make sense to me, but I couldn't get enough of it. And then I would go home and I downloaded and I subscribed to the Gaia TV. And in Gaia TV, there's Matthias de Stefano's videos where I think it's about initiation. I think that's the topic. It's very long series, but I sat and I binged watched the whole thing. I did not understand a lot of it because it's dimensions and these different things. I couldn't make sense of it, but I just couldn't get enough of it. And I did not have anyone to speak about it either. I can't get enough of it, but at the same time, I didn't have someone to discuss this with. Whether every time I get more information, my questions increased. It's not like my answers were getting, all of my answers were suddenly being answered, but the questions kept popping up more and more and more and more. And then in Feb, for some reason, I suddenly, in my meditations, it would just come through to start a podcast, to start a podcast, to start a YouTube channel. And at the time, I was doing lifestyle influencer thing in Dubai, where I would deal with brand deals and brand sponsorships. So it's like I get these products, I get invited to places, I get paid, I have to talk about buy this, this is amazing. That was what I was doing. And it's like my dream life. I get these access to these amazing products for free, and I also get paid for it, and I'm creating content, and I just have to look good and talk about it. But everything just ended in Feb. I could not. I've recorded a couple of videos to post about this brand, but I just couldn't bring myself up to post it. It just didn't feel right telling someone else to buy these things and to hold on to these materialistic things when I myself was not interested in. I just wanted to go inwards. I didn't want to go outwards. I wanted to go deep inside, inwards. The thing that I was craving was something else. It was luxury, but on the inside. It was massive expansion, but within, to figuring out who I am. How do I channel God? How do I speak with God? How do I hear God? How do I understand what's good for me? What is the soul? What's higher self? Who is Jesus? I didn't even know that Jesus Christ, I thought maybe he could have been like a myth, maybe legend. I prayed to him as a Christian all my life, but I still wasn't sure whether God or Jesus was real. And I began asking questions. And that's how I started the podcast. It was very scary because I didn't know anything about spirituality. I was new to this. I live in a Muslim country. I grew up Christian, so we don't speak about these things and we don't question things. A lot of the times, it's like you just believe. If you have questions, then probably you are a sinner. And so that first episode where I had to ask questions to the guest, I was almost crying and choking because I've never asked questions to someone.
Mhm.
In the classroom, too, I never raised my hand and asked questions. We are never encouraged to ask questions, especially coming from an Indian background and being a woman, you are made to always just follow what has been spoken by the men or by the adults or by your parents. There's just so many hierarchies, and you're probably the last one at the bottom of this chain who then gets to ask questions. So for me, I was bringing these amazing guests who gets millions of views on these other podcasts, and they come here, and now I'm here to ask questions. I'm being encouraged to ask questions. That in itself felt like an initiation into the expansion of who I am, what my soul is. And that's, I think, probably how this entire spiritual awakening journey started and how the podcasting started.
And it's an incredible manifestation. I mean, here you were wanting to know more, and you followed that little breadcrumb of the podcast, and now you have this full connection and education. How is your life changing? I know you're living more from the inside out, but are there physical examples that you could give listeners, other than the connections you're having on the
Mm.
podcast? Is there something
Oh,
specific in your life?
the physical manifestations take some time to come out, but it does happen. So at the time, I had also pretty close to the podcast launching period. I started my podcast on 4th April 2024. So I picked 4/4/2024. And around similar time too, I had gone to get Reiki, to study Reiki with my this same cousin sister that I'm talking about. Her name is Bhavana, but she calls herself Rico. She changed her, it's her alter ego kind of thing. So we went and did Reiki. When I went to do Reiki, it was traumatizing. Susan, you won't believe it because I'm sitting there and I have all of these other spiritual people, and I'm super duper logical, extremely logical, completely disconnected from my emotion. And they are talking about how they are seeing things and they're feeling it, and they're talking about their inner child and the traumas they went through. And I'm getting so annoyed because I'm like, oh, can you stop talking and whining, ladies, like all the time? They're like talking, and I'm getting annoyed because I never got in touch with my own emotions. I never spoke about, even if I went through that divorce, I never considered myself going through pain. I thought I can take it. I can take more than this.
Mm.
I can take whatever I want. You get it? I never gave myself the grace or the love that I deserve because I was just 25 when the whole divorce thing happened, 26 something. And it's a lot for that person who was afraid to just even ask the salesman, how much does this cost? So for that person to then have to go through this, go to court, and here in court, everyone speaks in Arabic. So you don't really understand what is being spoken about in the court. Yeah, you don't get to, they will ask you something and you just have to say, yeah, whatever. You have to speak in English and this person over there would translate it, and you don't know what they're translating it into. You don't know what's happening, but it is okay. It's pretty smooth because they don't really care. They just grant the divorce to you. They don't care if the expats stay together or get divorced. So, I got the divorce. Um, but then that whole process, right, when they tell you that there's going to be a hearing on this date. So that month before that hearing, I would have sleepless nights. I don't know what to expect. I don't know what's going to happen. I've never seen a court. So for that 25-year-old, this was a lot. There was so much, but I never shed a single tear. I never cried. And I kept it all within me. And then when I went to this Reiki session, I saw all of them talking about their things and how it's been affecting them, and every little thing. They're so deep about their emotions. They could spend the whole entire evening talking about their emotions. And I got so irritated, I could not take it. So I came back, and then they talk about how Reiki, what they're feeling, they're seeing these visions, etc. And I expected to feel something physically in me, but I didn't feel anything. So I came back feeling like someone who, like the bad student in class, all the class bench, the best performing students, they just understand the concepts and they seem to be able to take it all in. And I was this backbencher, so I felt like this complete loser who could never understand what they were talking about. And I didn't know if I was crazy or if they were crazy because they were talking about seeing things, seeing different things. And here I am, this super logical person. I couldn't understand. But I came back. 2 years later, Susan, in fact, I pushed that Reiki box under my bed in the deepest corner so that I would never touch it again. I never understood that it was being spoken or taught either. But this year, and this is what we were talking about before we got onto the podcast also, something seems to be happening where there is this abundance that seems to be coming forth. It's like right at my gate. And it's the inner work that's been going on in the last 2 years, which is silent, which no one knows, which no one
Mm.
sees, but you are doing this deep inner work. And then I posted this video about divorce. I never spoke about divorce. I thought, who cares? But I saw this video that said, your pain is the golden ticket to the life that you dream about. And so I decided that I would speak about the divorce. And when I spoke about the divorce, that video blew up. And I gained around 3,000, 4,000 followers through it. But what happened is, sure, you're gaining followers. But along with these followers, there were a lot of people who began asking me, do you take sessions? Do you do Reiki? Do you have a guide? Please help me do something, And when someone asks, do you do Reiki? The old me would have gotten freaked out because, I'm like, I don't know how to do Reiki. I don't know how to do sessions. But I just said, yes, sure. And I send the link. And there's also the part of me who believed that doing such good work must be done for free. So I had that as well in me, that sort of, I shouldn't charge money. Money is bad for doing spiritual work, for doing God's work. So I had to get through that too. I had to put some payment, something for them to pay me. And I did it, and they paid. And I was shocked because I thought, how is this possible? I had started multiple businesses before and I had to put together products, put together these things and
Mm.
uh, put in so much money for doing that. And here, there is just some person over here who's selling, they will pay me just for my time, just to speak to me, just for my energy, just for my presence. And it's not even like I have this entire, I didn't do any sort of NLP coaching or things like that, but it's Reiki. It's Reiki, it's energy. You're giving energy to someone and they're paying me for that. And they paid. And then I go for the session. And when I go for the session, I channel. And when I channel, I see how their energy changes. I see how they come out of a joyful. I get surprised myself with the messages that come forth from the divine creator, from God, from Archangel Raphael, from their loved ones, their ancestors, their higher self. It comes through and I see how much it changes them. And then money started coming in from these different places. I also began to feel physically, for the first time, my palms tingling. So it starts with this.
Ah,
I would just have a thought, a focus on Reiki, and my palms would start tingling. And I know then that this was Reiki. This is what my teachers and my classmates used to speak about when I went to do Reiki back then, but I never felt anything. And then I recently spoke to my guest, Genevieve Tager, who said that what happens is when you keep practicing channeling Reiki, focusing on Reiki, Reiki is God's energy. That's it. It's just God, God's energy. And when you keep focusing on God's energy, um, your meridians open up and your nadis open up. And when they open up, you become more sensitive to these energies and then you can feel it physically. So now, from someone who could not feel anything, I am now physically feeling the changes in my body, the sensitivity. I can feel the pressure building up on my forehead. I can then feel the joy after doing a Reiki session for my client. I might be getting in not knowing what to expect, but I come out of it so joyful and so happy. And then I physically see money coming into my bank account from different people, people contacting me. I'm going and seeing people, meeting them in person, and then online. And it's not just men, it's not just women, it's also male clients. And I'm getting into mediumship. There's a whole lot of things that's just been opened up, and this is after these two, or maybe I guess ever since the divorce happened, there's been a lot of deep inner work that's been going on that the rest of the world doesn't see, only you see. But then it gets to a point where you can finally see it, you can feel it, and the world also sees it. And this journey in itself has been so fulfilling and magical. My life is so beautiful right now, ever since I began tapping into my intuition and tapping into divine, tapping into Reiki, tapping into God.
your transformation is so pure and your light is so exquisite, and you're such a powerful example for listeners that want to do the same but have no idea how the process happens. And your trust is admirable. I'm so grateful that you came to share this message today. And I think I agree with you. 2026 is going to be a huge year for manifestation. So if people want to get in touch with you or listen to your podcast, Celeste Evolve, where do they come?
They could go and search for Celeste Evolve on YouTube. I understand that the spelling is probably a little bit challenging, maybe, but it is Celest, Celeste, and then Evolve. So just search for Celeste Evolve on YouTube. Then you can find me directly on Instagram and TikTok as Tania Stanly, TaniaStanly_. And Susan, thank you so much for doing this work that you do. I understand when you are beginning a podcast, you might not get a lot of views, but keep doing it because it changes you as a person. And even if there's one person who comes across this conversation, it's going to change them. So thank you so much, Susan, for doing this and for giving me the opportunity to speak to you.
It's been a delight to have you, and I feel you've just been an inspiration with your honesty and clarity. So, best of luck.